discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Linda Bucci, and I am the coordinator for the graduate program here at LaSalle University for our master's degree in criminal justice. I'm also the program chair for justice studies for our undergraduate students. And we're very excited tonight to have a professional panel of several very well educated and experienced folks who have worked in all aspects and different parts of either the criminal justice system, the social justice arena, or all the various areas that folks with degrees like ours can move on and use and explore. So they're here today to have a conversation with you. Any questions that you would have about that? And let me start by introducing them. We have Ricardo Carter, who is currently the Chief United States Probation Officer for the Federal Probation Office for the District of Massachusetts. He has 25 years of experience in the field of adult and juvenile community corrections, and he has spent the last 20 years working for the federal judiciary and the federal court as a probation officer. He has his Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice and his Master's of Science in criminal justice. We also have tonight, welcome, Rick. Excited to have you.
Happy to be
We
here.
also have here Cara Rossi, who is lieutenant in the Natick Police Department. And she is the Community Service Division Commander. Prior to that, she spent her time as Patrol Operations Commander for 10 years. She's been a patrol officer, patrol sergeant, and then patrol division commander for the Natick Police Department. Prior to that, she was a Department of Youth Services worker. And she also has her Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and her Master's of Arts in Criminal Justice as well. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you.
And we have Robert Boutella Jr., who is currently a adjunct professor at Endicott and doing television crime analyst for series and TV and true crime genre. He has appeared in Investigation Discovery Channel. He will also appear in upcoming episode of the TV One network show For My Man. But before doing that, he spent 33 years working in federal, state, and local law enforcement, where he led local, regional, national, and international illicit drug trafficking and narco-terrorism investigations. So he has a long history also in law enforcement at all levels and is a trainer now. And he holds his BS in criminal justice from Northeastern University and a Master's of Arts in International Relations. And he also has received certificates from Harvard University Law School for negotiations for senior executives and dealing with difficult people in difficult situations. I could use your help. I want a degree, difficult people in difficult situations.
Right? We all have that
Right.
problem, right? Dealing with difficult people.
I know. That's the world that we're involved in, but a very experienced professional and took a little different track than some of the other folks we have here.
Thank
Then
you.
we have Erin Miller, who works, who has been around many institutions in many aspects, but currently and for several years has held several roles at the Newton Wellesley Hospital. She is currently the Equity, Inclusion, and Abuse Prevention Officer with Newton Wellesley Hospital. She's also the project management team lead for the National SANE Telenursing Center. She's also the founder and lead of the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Program at Newton Wellesley Hospital. She does program development, policy coordination, in-service training, community relations. She does it all from a advocacy and social justice point of view. She's also a trainer and independent consultant where she has conducted trainings in domestic violence, sexual assault, homeless service advocacy, child protection teams, law enforcement, healthcare providers, abuser education, legal services personnel, and the like. Also the Massachusetts District Attorneys Association. And she has a great deal of experience in all those fields. She has more degrees than I can tell you. I'm looking here. I didn't know you had so many master's degrees. Here's
If I stop going to school, I have to start paying.
oh my God, I was looking at this and I said, I'm going to go back to school. Erin is still working on it. So now she's a candidate for a Master's of Public Health in Johns Hopkins. I'm so excited. Anyway, and also she has an MPA in domestic violence, which is very unique to have. We have a concentration in our field in domestic violence, but Erin has her master's in public administration. Is that right? In domestic violence. It's one of the few programs from the University of Colorado. Also, she has an MPS in Africana Studies from Cornell. And then you have your undergraduate degree. Did I miss something? Oh, you're doing some more. You're doing some more certificates. Yale School of Management, Fostering Diversity and Inclusion, Columbia Law School, Critical Race Theory and Intersectionality. Oh my God, you're not giving up on learning. So welcome, Erin. You have a lot to tell us. Did Dean, did you just join us?
I did. I got a little hung up coming back from my son's lacrosse practice, but and then the rain and thunder hit and everyone was driving about 2 miles per hour, but I made it.
You made it. We're so glad you did. Wait a minute. I know Dean because he did our program.
I did.
Yes. You can tell everyone how great it is.
I love it. I talk about it all the time. I've sent
I
at least
know.
3 of my coworkers through. So
I know, it's great. So Dean, he just started doing this, right? You haven't been doing this so long. Currently is the chief facilitator and collaborator at Supply the Why, which specializes in leadership and cultural development. Supply the Why accomplishes this by providing expert communication by facilitating difficult conversations about a number of topics, ranging from police use of force to race relations. A lot to talk about there. He's currently a police sergeant in the town of Stoughton, and in his role there, he's in charge of training, accreditation, public records, defensive tactics and use of force, and the RAD Women's Self-Defense Program. He also teaches, and he is an FBI certified crisis negotiator. He received his BS in criminal justice and his Master's of Science at LaSalle University with a concentration of crisis and emergency management. Welcome, everybody. We took 25 minutes just to talk about our experienced panel and all that they have to offer. So I'm glad to see that we have wonderful people here. I'm going to stop talking so that all of the students and other professionals who have joined us can take advantage of this wonderful panel. So, chat questions. Is that where we're going? Who would read the questions?
Hello, everyone. I think one of the things we should do right now is everyone can probably start off by talking about their journey. A lot of our students and a lot of our guests who are on the line today are really interested in how did you get to where you are today? What were the things that you had to do? Who did you have to meet? You know, what was the tier to get you to where you are today?
We can start with any of you. I'll go by the first one that's on my page. Erin.
By accident. I got where I am by accident. Really,
Yes.
truly.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. I had a real passion for Black studies, and part of that was watching what happened to Black women and Black children and the kinds of violence and abuse that they experienced. And that led me to domestic and sexual violence and stalking and elder abuse. And that has moved me across many different kinds of both academic and activist work, and eventually led me to healthcare. And all of it was sort of an accident. I just followed the experiences of the people I was privileged enough to serve and listen to their stories, and was trying to do what they were asking is about my best answer. And I know that is not a sufficient one, but it's been very interdisciplinary. My track is not a clear-cut one.
Well, what advice would you give people if that's how you, I mean, if they're not sure and they, in terms of their experiences and what they should do when they're looking to where they want to go next?
Yeah. I think what has served me well, I know you were sort of half joking about me persistently being in school, but I have persistently been curious and stayed in school and been really humble about the stuff I don't know, which is an enormous amount of things. And that has served me well because I joke and I say I'm bilingual, bicultural in many different spaces. I speak healthcare, I speak mental health, I speak substance use disorders, I speak homelessness services, I speak legal, I speak many different things because I have just persistently put myself in every space and been curious and annoyed people with questions. So
Excellent, but you've also been able to develop policy at the institutions where you are, which is amazing, and train others to do so.
yeah, I think of myself as a cipher. I've been able to pass along a lot of the stuff that I've learned, either from the people I serve or from the academic spaces I've been in.
So Cara, tell us about your journey.
So, like Erin, I accidentally became a police officer. So I majored in softball, quite honestly. I got a scholarship. I'm just going to be honest with you. I got a scholarship undergrad to UMass Lowell. If you can all hear my voice, it's kind of scraggly and it's scratchy. People always ask me if I'm sick. I had several throat surgeries as a child. My lung collapsed. They went down through, like intubated or whatever, and caused polyps in my voice box. So I had to continuously have medical procedures for that. And I thought I wanted to be a nurse because the people that I interacted with in the hospital in Children's in Boston were so amazing to me that I wanted to be a nurse. So I applied undergrad. I got accepted into the nursing program. I went in. My roommate, another softball player, was a criminal justice major. I want to be a cop. That's all I want to do. I found myself reading her textbooks on my downtime when I should have been studying anatomy and physiology, which I hated. And so after my first semester, I was like, this is a no-brainer. I'm so enthralled with all of this information that I want to learn. I changed majors. I didn't tell my mom, and she got my report card. And this is back in the days before cell phones or texting or computers. So I ran down the hallway, like, your mother's on the phone. I got your report card. You did very well, but there's something about criminal. What have you done? I said, well, I did nothing, but I changed my major. I'm a criminal justice major. From that point on, I've been so interested in the topic as a student that I graduated. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I had taken the police exam. It was in that period in the late 80s, early 90s when we were in that no hiring, like the hiring freeze. So I worked for the Department of Youth Services. I actually got hired. I was the youngest case worker to ever be hired in my region. I was only 21 and I got hired. I was really passionate about helping the kids. It ended up that within a year of me getting that job, the police exam was starting to call for people on that list. I said, I'm going to give it a try. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I'll give it a try. So long story short, 27 and a half years later, this is where I ended up. When I first got on, there were no women at Natick PD. Anywhere in Metro West Natick, that whole area, Metro West Boston, Natick, Framingham, Ashland, that area, we were not part of police departments. That was particularly challenging for me. So I said to myself, you're going to have to do 10 times more than what these male officers do to be accepted. So right away, I started a master's program. So I got hired in 94. In 97, I graduated from Anna Maria College with a master's in criminal justice, knowing that I had to be better, smarter, more prepared to be accepted. And looking back, although I thought I wanted to be a nurse, the roles are so similar with nursing and policing. It's such a caring and a caretaker role that I think I made the right choice. Linda, you're muted.
I'm going to field some of these questions once everyone answers the one that we just asked everybody on their journey, but I'm seeing some questions about how you obtain some of the opportunities, et cetera. But let's, the next person is Robert. Tell us about your journey, Robert, and what you think you could help the students, both graduate and undergraduate, understand about it.
Sure. I think my journey, what I learned from my journey is that you want to take ownership of your pathway and be the architect of your own pathway, and understand that it's not necessarily going to be linear. Okay. Some of your peers, it may be for them, but for me, I started out as an 18-year-old uniformed police cadet at the campus police where I went to college. And so I had many other internships along the way. And, you know, starting out as a young kid growing up in Dorchester, if you were to tell me at that young age that one day you will be a counterterrorism officer on the FBI's National Joint Terrorism Task Force, I would not have really envisioned that. So it's a persevere. You know, along the way, I had to miss a semester of college because I ran out of money. Slept in my car a few nights and had to bounce back and finish up. And so I think it's important, you know, an example of, in addition to myself, my son just recently, my eldest son just became a police officer out in Utah. He decided to go out west. And so his pathway was not necessarily linear. He started out going to college for business, dropped out of college and took a job in private industry out in Utah. And after 7 years, he managed to start interviewing for police departments. And after all that time, here he is. He got a seat at the table, but his pathway was different. And his business acumen will serve him very well. One of the other things that was helpful to me along the way was obtaining my my master's degree. Just learning how to do social research, how to do analytical writing, because one of the most important things that I did in my former job at my former agency with the DEA, I was a special agent for the DEA for 33 years. And so you spend a lot of time collecting, aggregating, synthesizing information, and writing very detailed narrative reports, and you're collecting information from a lot of data points. And so that served me well getting my master's degree. It really helped enhance my career. Another valuable aspect of it, what I learned once I was able to ascend into a leadership role and be responsible for operational matters, enforcement matters, as well as performing the business functions of a global organization. You know, what really occurred to me was, I think, and I've given this advice to my son, and I'm glad to hear what his plan is, and I'll share that with you in a moment. But what I feel like is, sometimes when we're young, we go into law enforcement and we may not necessarily envision ourselves in a leadership role. And so it would be really worthwhile for you along the way to take some business classes or develop some sort of business acumen, because when you get into those roles, you're managing and leading people. You're dealing with people and their issues and your employees, and you're not necessarily dealing with the enforcement matters on a regular basis, on a day-to-day. And so I think what happens is, if you don't envision yourself in that leadership role, then what happens is when you ascend to those roles, now you're responsible, because every law enforcement organization, whether you're state, federal, local, has a business function. And if you step into a leadership role and now you're responsible for training and a budget, and you don't have a business acumen, you are now learning that on the job. And I don't think that law enforcement does enough to train their people to go into these positions and hit the ground running. So I think that's a valuable thing, is to really learn how and a lot of the business majors, they learn this stuff. They learn managing people and issues with that, and personalities, and how to deal with that. And that took up the majority of my time, as a leader, dealing with those type of issues. So my journey was really humble beginnings as a police cadet, and worked my way up to 3 internships in college with the DEA, twice in Washington, D.C. at their headquarters, and once in the Boston field office. And once I was able to see up close in the Boston field office what the agent's actual day to day was like, I was hooked, line and sinker. And I actually fell into DEA by accident. Most of my friends in college, they were working for then U.S. Customs. It's now HSI, under Department of Homeland Security. And so, like, hey, we have this great internship. There's 15 of us down in Washington, D.C., and we rent apartments, and you need to get down there. And so I interviewed for Customs, and they didn't select me. So I went back to my job at the campus police department. I had worked my way up and earned 50 cents more to become dispatcher, on the evening shift. And God bless my advisor. She had called me up and she said, listen, DEA was here at the university and they didn't interview enough people. And so they asked me to suggest 2 more people for 2 positions in Washington, D.C. Do you want one? And I said, yes. And I packed up my 1973 Toyota with what I had, and I drove down to DC and started my internship. And so that's how I fell into the DEA. My ambition was to join the FBI, but as I said, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end up. And I found myself at the FBI Academy after all, because at that time, DEA and FBI were co-located at the FBI Training Academy. So I had the benefit of both DEA instructors and FBI instructors. And so I ended up at J. Edgar Hoover's Training Academy, and my pathway was a little bit different. So that was a little bit of my journey. And lastly, I'll just mention from my son, he just recently told me that he's going to finish out his degree at the University of Utah, and he plans to get his MBA afterwards. And I said, perfect. You'll be better positioned to run an organization. And I'm proud to hear that. So that's a little bit of my journey.
You had quite a journey, and actually at the end, after we finished going through the panel, one of the questions relates to what you said, which is people are like, well, I would love to do some of these internships. How do I find these internships? How do I get these internships? And we spend a lot of time trying to help them with that. But if any of you have advice on how to be persistent and find ways to break into some of these agencies to get some experience, but let me still reach both Dean and Rick on their journey. Let's start with Rick.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda. And I'd like to say good evening to everyone who's joined us. My name is Rick Carter. I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the District of Massachusetts. I also want to say thanks to the organizers of this event for asking me to sit on this esteemed panel and for this opportunity to kind of address this wonderful group of criminal justice professionals. I tell you, it truly is an honor and a privilege to be in your presence. And I genuinely hope that all of you that are on the call today have remained healthy and safe during these most challenging times. Before I talk a little bit about my path and why I chose to be a probation officer, I think it may be helpful just to give a little brief background on the federal courts. There's like 94 federal jurisdictions across the country. Some states have multiple federal districts and are identified by like northern, southern, eastern, western, and middle. In North Carolina, for example, you have 3 districts, which is the Eastern District, the Middle District, and the Western District. And Florida has northern, middle, and southern, if you can make sense of all of that. But some states only have 1 district like Rhode Island or Maine or Vermont or Massachusetts. And there's approximately about 9,000 employees in the federal probation and pretrial system, and only 100 chiefs. So the position of chief probation officer is the highest position obtained in the federal probation service. And that person is appointed the leader of the probation services in the jurisdiction in which they serve. And to Robert's point about training individuals to get that management and leadership and that business acumen, I think that is a valid point as you look at your careers and what you want to be when you're done with your studies. I think my path began, or my story, I should say, begins in 1991 when I went to college. And like many of my friends and other people that I knew at the time, they thought, or we thought, that we were going to major in business. We all thought we were going to be business professionals and we were going to, make it big that way. But I found that the business courses were extremely boring. And it really wasn't until I took my first criminal justice class that I really started to enjoy the college experience. I found the exploration of criminal behavior and the theories on crime fascinating. And I really enjoyed to kind of go to class, and we were studying things that were happening in real time, like the Branch Davidians in Waco during that time period. And I just found that so interesting. And I knew early on that I kind of wanted to be a probation officer, more specifically, a juvenile probation officer, because I wanted to help kids kind of escape the web of the criminal justice system. And so shortly after graduation, I was kind of lucky. I think someone said sometimes there's a little bit of luck that plays into this. And the real key here is being prepared when that opportunity or that luck strikes. So I was offered my dream job right out of college as a juvenile probation officer working with youth in the same town in which I attended college. And at the same time, I had entered my master's program as well. So I was working full time and I was attending classes during my lunch breaks and at night, working towards my master's degree. And I tell you that working and going to school really allowed me to kind of connect what I was learning in the classroom to how I performed on my job. And it was that deeper understanding that reinforced, through practical application, which allowed me, I think, to really thrive in my chosen career. For the record, I'll say this, I don't know how many people have worked with juveniles in the juvenile justice system, but working with criminal justice involved youth, their families, service providers, school officials, can be some challenging work at times. But however, on the other hand, it probably was some of the most rewarding work I've done in my career. To watch a kid kind of turn it around and head in a different direction and put the pieces of the puzzle together and never get enthralled into the adult criminal justice system is truly an amazing thing to watch. So, and that's probably, why I've kind of for 25 years kind of been involved in the probation system, because I think at the core, I really just want to help people. And that's why I started this. It's like, I want to help others. And I think that people can change. I really believe at my core that people can change and that society should not judge them for the rest of their lives based on the worst day of their life. So I've spent the last 25 years really trying to help people or provide what I call this ladder of hope for individuals that find themselves in some dark places or find themselves on the other side of law enforcement. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about what we do and what I do. I actually love my job. I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made outside of marrying my lovely wife, Lisa, was kind of being a probation officer and enrolling in a master's program and obtaining my master's degree. I think one of the questions I was supposed to ask is like, how did having the master's degree kind of help, this pathway. And I'll say that, having a master's degree really broadened my understanding of the world. I think one of the most important things that I learned in my master's program was analytical and critical thinking. And that's what I'll call my awake moment, because that's when I actually was able to gather information and use that information and make my own decisions and to think critically about what was happening around me. And I think that has led to like many sound decisions. And I think when you couple that with what I'll call the secret of success, which is self-discipline, I think that, it was pivotal in my ability to kind of transition from working juvenile cases to working with adults and juveniles, to working a caseload of violent offenders, to being selected as a federal probation officer, to getting promoted from senior probation officer to supervisory probation officer, to deputy chief probation officer, to chief, to working at the administrative office and traveling around the country, evaluating the federal probation system and making recommendations. And I know I just fast forwarded through 25 years of my career, but the point I want to drive home is this, that none of the promotions or the opportunities would have been possible without the knowledge that I obtained during my master's program. My professors were terrific. I still remember Dr. Dameron, Dr. Moore, Dr. Brown. They were awesome professors, and they prepared me for a successful career in the criminal justice field. And I'm so happy to be here, and I think that I appreciate the professors providing this platform for me to be here and kind of talk to you about my path. I hope something here will inspire you and continue down your journey. And I think I'll just be quiet right now and kind of turn this back over to Linda. But thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself. I said, thank you, Rick. And I'm ready to hear from Dean.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Bucci. Thank you, everybody out there, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and listen to us and hear a little bit about our journeys. So I'm going to take a little bit from everybody, but I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. So much like everybody else on the panel, I kind of fell into police work. It was not something that I aspired to do. I am 45 years old, and the reason why I tell you that, it's pertinent because I grew up in the mid to early 90s, and that is when the Rodney King incident happened. And that, like most other young Black men, especially those of us in the suburbs, I grew up with a strong distrust of police. I was angry towards police and all this anger that was directed towards police based on something that happened thousands of miles from where I live. And the moral of the story of that is one of my best friend's father was a police officer. I had all these police officers that I knew from around town. They used to come to my games. I played football, I played basketball, I played all these things. They'd work the details. All these people were great to me, but I allowed what happened in the Rodney King case. And for those of you that aren't old enough to remember that, and I assume there's a lot of you if you are still in school, please Google that case. It was a landmark case, and it was something that unfortunately hasn't completely fixed itself, and it's been 30 something years now. But fast forward to where we are now. My journey started much like Robert's, where I did not get the first police job I applied for. So I had to start as a Boston Special Police Officer, which is basically you're assigned to some of the worst sections of Boston, patrolling some of those housing developments. Then I moved up to my alma mater, college. I went to UMass Boston for my undergrad. I played football and I did track there. So that helped me get the job. Then from there, I went to another college, Boston University, a little bigger. Then I went to the city of Manchester, New Hampshire, which is the largest city in New England north of Boston. And then I ended up here in Stoughton, where I am now. It's where I grew up. And I've been here for 6.5 years ish. And I ended up getting my master's degree at 43 years old. So what's the point I'm trying to make here? So I was able to accomplish a lot by just going by a couple simple rules. First of all, don't ever let anybody else tell you you're not good enough. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you don't matter or you can't measure up. Had I done that, I wouldn't be where I am now. So when I was at one of my previous jobs, I won't mention which one, they told me that I wasn't assertive enough to be a sergeant. And anybody who's known me, if you've seen any of my content, anybody who's been one of my professors knows how crazy that is. Yep, Professor Abbott is saying what? Yeah, they actually told me I wasn't assertive enough to be a sergeant. And up until this year, 2021, they hadn't had anybody of color make it past the rank of patrol. So maybe there was a problem there. And then on top of that, I went to become a defensive tactics instructor, and they told me I wasn't qualified enough to be a defensive tactics instructor, even though I was a practicing martial artist. I was a two-time champion in grappling competitions. Grappling is it's like wrestling, but with submissions, chokes, joint locks, things like that. So I was still training and all that in addition to kickboxing and mixed martial arts, but they told me I wasn't qualified enough to be a defensive tactics instructor at the same department. So needless to say, I packed my bags. I told them thanks, but no thanks. And I moved on to a place that valued me. And 4 months into my next job, I was being offered a spot as a defensive tactics instructor. And they told me, obviously, they said, hey, listen, you're the guy, but you've only been here 4 months. We really can't make you a trainer in 4 months. But it's amazing, by not taking no and not letting these other people diminish me, I go to someplace else, a much larger agency, and they immediately said, where have you been? Where have you been all this time? We've been searching for you. And that's why you don't let anybody diminish you. And that's why you don't let anybody tell you no. If you know you're good enough and you put in the work and you put in the time, that's what you can do. So as far as my master's career, what that did for me, like, yes, the information was great. I got my master's in criminal justice with a focus in crisis and emergency management. So that was all great information. But the thing that really did for me is that really got me to change my paradigm and the way I viewed the world. It allowed me to dust off my skills as far as being able to triage assignments. So I'm 43. I had just got promoted to sergeant. I have 3 kids. How do I do all that and still get 6 assignments a week done? Because I went full time. So I was doing 2 classes at a time. And that was, it was very hard at first. I thought about quitting. But the first thing I did was I put together a study group. I grabbed 4 like-minded people and we all worked together and we supported each other. That's very important. And the second thing I did was I learned how to triage assignments, learned how to okay, listen, I got an hour. I can get while my kid's practicing, I can get a discussion post done. And then maybe I can do this. I can get a couple responses in. Like, you learn how to do that. It served me so well in my role as a sergeant with all those different titles that Dr. Bucci spoke about. And that wasn't even all of them. I do even more than that. And that allows me to really flourish in my role now. But again, it all started because I didn't let anybody tell me I wasn't good enough, and I didn't let anybody tell me no. So I will save the rest for the questions.
So there we are. My goodness. So I have been trying to follow some of the questions, and one of the ones that I saw was, what kind of classes did you feel helped you the most? There was a question about that, so anyone could do that. There was one about, as I told you earlier, how do you break into some of these places so that you can explore and network and figure out how to get an internship or how to get an opportunity, so that you can see what's out there. And anyone could jump into any of these questions that I've seen so far from the panel, from the chat room.
I'll jump in on what type of courses. I think that it's also important, as you can hear from the panelists, they're all very good speakers. And one of the things that you need to learn when you're going through school is you have to develop those skills and assuaging your fears of speaking in front of people and giving presentations. And so one of the things that helped me in graduate school was, and to a certain extent in undergrad, were any classes that required you to do research a topic, come up with a hypothesis question, which is the basis of your research, and then sort of present that to the class. And usually it was a topic on something that you were either interested in or you were assigned a topic that you didn't know anything about. And so from that experience, you learn how to research things and become up to speed, get up to speed on something and be able to present it in a reasonable way. One of my colleagues, he went as far as to join the local Toastmasters to get over that fear. So I would say any courses that require you to do that, because it was very typical for me to walk in on a given day and say, and the principal, you know, and in our case, you know, we don't have chiefs, we have special agents in charge. And so I would walk in and my supervisor would say, listen, you know, the special agent in charge, the principal, he needs you to give him a 15-minute briefing on what's happening with your operation in South America. So now I've got to go to my desk and I've got to put together 5 to 7 PowerPoint slides that's going to encapsulate an operation where I'm supporting maybe 5 or 6 divisions across the country, and I'm supervising in those divisions probably 3 to 4 agents in each division, and then I'm dealing with, you know, offices in South America, I'm dealing with the State Department, I'm dealing with other agencies. And so not only do I get called upon to go in and do that type of brief, I also have to spend time, as I did, you know, at that particular time in my career, going around the Beltway, meeting with other intel agencies, as well as other law enforcement agencies, and briefing their executive people on the same thing. So you have to work on that skill set. And I was always nervous. I'm nervous before every presentation. It's human nature to be nervous. But I think what the research teaches you is that if you prepare and you go in prepared, then that sort of takes care of some of the nervousness, because you know the material, and then it's just all about refining your presentation and your delivery and keying on what's important, and then being able to answer the questions that you're asked, or just having the courage to say, I don't know the answer to that question, and let me do a little research and I'll respond back to you. So I think any courses that challenge you to do that, I think would be highly beneficial along the way.
So if I might, as Robert said, communication is the key. And if you're looking to be in local law enforcement, municipal law enforcement, for me, communication at the patrol level, you have to communicate with people in very difficult situations, the whole range of the spectrum, from a traffic stop to an armed suspect. I mean, you have to be able to communicate in really tense situations without preparation. The more knowledgeable you become, the more comfortable you become and more confident. And I think advancing your degree only develops confidence more and more. Those kind of situations are, you know, not an everyday situation other than the traffic stop, but then you get to where you want to advance in your career as a municipal officer. You take a promotional exam, you get promoted, and now you're a sergeant. So the people that yesterday in a mid-sized agency like mine, yesterday you were coworkers, now you're the supervisor. That type of communication is really difficult. It's something you learn as you educate yourself formally. Then you get to the point where you're going to promote again and you're a part of the command staff, where I am in now. Public speaking has never been something that I've been comfortable with. It's not something that I ever aspired to. My chief was super progressive, and from the minute that I got promoted, he used to assign me where he couldn't go. So he couldn't go to speak to a group, he'd assign me. There'd be hundreds of people in an audience, and for me to get up and have to deliver a speech in that format was super difficult. The more you do it and the more confident you are, and having having interacted with people from all different walks of life that I've never would have otherwise been exposed to through my education really helped me in the situation where I'd have to go up and give a speech to people that I didn't know. So although you don't think when you're taking a class that's not communication based, any sort of higher education prepares you for what you're going to face down the road.
Anybody else?
I think I'll just kind of just reiterate what Robert and Cara said. I think it's really critical that you have some type of class and communications and work on the public speaking and get comfortable being uncomfortable. I agree with the research and statistics. I think those are important aspects. I think also business management, some type of, as much as I thought those classes were boring, I can tell you in my current job, having some of the management theories and building off of those and developing leaders inside of my organization, that's been very, very important. And then the last thing is I'll say is just the theory classes. I think if you're going to work, you need to understand human behavior. You need to understand how people act and how different things drive behaviors and how to increase motivation and be able to meet people where they are.
All right, if I could jump in real quick. I think everybody has had some wonderful contributions. I'm going to look at this a little bit differently, and I'm going to sum it up with diversity. Diversity. And when I say diversity, people think different people, different backgrounds, and that's definitely the most common way to look at diversity. But what I got from my master's experience and what all of you should be looking to get from this panel is diversity of thought processes. It's just as important to have diversity of the mind as it is to have diversity of people. And through your master's career, you will develop the ability to think differently and see more. Well, you ought to if you're doing it right. Your mindset and your ability to say, hey, I had this in my master's career. I might not be an expert in it, but I can kind of, almost like Spanish, like I can speak a little Spanish. Like if you stuck me in Spain, I'd be in trouble, but I might be able to kind of get my way around a little bit because I took Spanish once. Well, this is no different. All these different classes you take, it's the same thing. So it's not, no one's expecting you to be able to walk in day one on a job and be an expert in that job. But we do expect you to be able to say, hey, I can pick up that concept because this isn't the first time I've seen it. Or I can pick up this concept because I can change my mind around and I can see things through a different lens because I had to do that in my college career. So that's really quick. That's something that I would encourage you to just be thoughtful of. Everybody's doing it right now, but you might not be conscious of the fact that you're learning that skill. So let me unlock that for you and welcome you to the team of diversity.
Well, I think I want to hear from Erin on some of this because she has crossed over so many different areas. As she said, she's in business now. She did healthcare. She did criminal justice. And it seems to me, based on what you're hearing here, that that's probably what you were trying to say earlier about why you think it's important to go into all these different arenas and gain from it so that you can use that in all the ways that you experience all the people that you experience. That's just my little mini take on it.
No, absolutely. And I'm super grateful. I want to raise up everything that everyone has said, because some of the classes that, as Rick put it, were the most boring are the things that I am most grateful for now. The analytical writing, the HR, the leadership, the organizational change, the finance, the things that I had to drag myself through. I'm really glad that I have those things now. They have served me well. And they weren't my first choice. The things that inspired me and that continue to inspire me were the anti-oppression classes, the equity and inclusion classes. You know, how do we ensure that everyone not only gets a seat at the table, but gets to design the agenda? And the trauma classes. If you're doing work in criminal legal systems, inevitably, a disproportionate number of the folks that you are going to be serving and attempting to empower are people who are going to have really significant trauma histories. And both your employees and the people that you are serving out into the community. So I would encourage you, even if you're not going and getting a master's degree in those subjects, I think for many of us, those are lifelong learning journeys. And those are things that the information is just exploding. Neuroscience and our understanding of how we build structural equity. These are things that we're all learning at a rapid clip. And the information is, it's hard to keep up with. So know that you are on a journey with everyone else and just stay committed to that journey.
Great advice. I want to add something as a professor and as what I've seen in my law career and some of my other careers. And that is, of course, we haven't talked about it too much, but learning how to communicate includes learning how to write. And write, you get better and better at writing. All the employers that I always talk to, or they always say, we want people that can write, people that can speak, and people that can think, right? Teamwork, of course, but all those things relate. And writing, my students will be, well, how do you get, the only way you get better is like how you get better at everything. Practice, 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 practice. So you keep writing, you keep editing, you keep doing it. And actually, some people learn to really love writing. And I think part of when you learn to love writing comes from learning how to do it well and getting better at it. And it's like anything else we're talking about here. You enjoy what you do when you're confident and you feel that you're good at what you do. And it takes practice and experience. So the more experience you get at it. So I really want to point that out. And as a lawyer, how I was trained is one of the best ways to be a good speaker or be a good writer is everything that you say or write about, you back up with evidence, not just that you get from some material, which involves the research. And again, that's when you're making your points based on the evidence, not just I think so, but why do you think so? What do you base it on? And I think that also helps your writing. So that's my little speech on what you look for. And those apply to any positions. So you can move between careers and between areas if you have those skills that transfer. And all of the people here are talking about, as time goes on, you're going to want to move up in whatever agency you're in. And to be a leader, you have to also know, as Robert has pointed out, a little bit about how to work with people and how to manage all these different things. So
I think, Linda, something that a lot of young people want to go into policing. They think it's a real exciting career and it's what you see on TV. But what they don't realize is the most important weapon that you have as a police officer is your pen. Because if you don't write it and if you don't articulate it correctly, then it doesn't mean anything. So to get young people to understand the importance of being able to articulate clearly and concisely, and you're an attorney, like you're going up against a judge who has a JD, a defense attorney with a JD, and your prosecutor who has a JD. And if you're going up there and your report can't stand up to what these three doctors of law have, what they're going to argue, then you're going to embarrass yourself. So the best thing you can do is learn how to write well, write a lot, write every chance you get in your undergraduate, in your graduate education, to make you, if you're looking to go into a career in law enforcement, if you can't articulate it, then it doesn't matter how well you do the job out on the road. If you can't put it on paper in a way that can be defended in court, you might as well not even work.
May I jump in and underscore what Cara just said? and from a federal law enforcement experience, she is precisely right, because you're required to write affidavits for search warrants. You are required to give oral testimony before grand juries at trial. And so what you write down in your narrative reports along the way during these investigations, there's a tremendous amount at stake, because let's face it, yeah, when you're young, it's exciting, it's dangerous, it's fun. But really, where you earn your keep is, are you able to collect the best evidence and bring a prosecutable case federally to the United States Attorney's Office? And the burden of proof is tremendous. And so I used to, encourage the folks that I was responsible for supervising. Listen, we're all out here together, working hours on end, spending more time amongst ourselves than with our families. Let's do the job right. Let's collect the best evidence. Let's make sure that our reporting is highly accurate. Let's make sure the collection of our evidence is articulated well. And when we bring a prosecutable case, we have a good chance of making all that time and effort worthwhile spent away from our families. Because if not, what are we doing out here? So I think it's critically important to be able to write well. And as Cara mentioned, your affidavits, they will be challenged by the defense, and you want to be on the best side or the right side. And oftentimes, you'll see as a result of less than the best work, it can have a terrible outcome. And that is bad case law that affects law enforcement officers at all levels throughout the country.
Forever.
Yes.
Well, we actually have, yes, I wanted to say we have actually 2 minutes left, but I think we should extend it
That's
just a
right.
little bit. And this is Cindy, by the way, and I just wanted to say thank you. Before we go into our last bit of questions, I do want to encourage the students who are watching that we have a career and internship department that will gladly work with anyone on this panel today. And that's part of what we want to do to really be able to have our students really look into their pathways to go into the careers in law enforcement. So we wanted, at that part, I wanted to just know that we'll be in contact with you, and I'm going to leave it for Linda to continue on her moderation of this panel.
Well, looking at the chat, I don't see any new questions, but I think that I'm looking to see if the students or anyone else have any further questions they want to hear. I think it's been a wonderful interactive panel. I've learned a lot. I always learn a lot from every panel I go to. That's another good piece of advice, which is every opportunity you have to go to a training, a panel, to hear a presentation, especially while you're affiliated with educational institutions, take advantage of it. You learn something new at everything you go to, and it gives you an idea, right? I'm sure several of you here got ideas that you didn't think about to what you might want to do in your future. I do think the more internships you do, that's another thing. In our undergraduate program, for example, we make them do 2. And the more you do, the better. And it's not to say, oh, I want to do this because I necessarily want to do this. It's to see what you do want to do, what you don't want to do, and what there is to do. So you have to be open to all the possibilities that come your way. And don't say, well, I don't really think I want to do that. You can learn whether you want to do it by trying it. And I think that that's also a good opportunity.
We all kind of fell into these careers by accident. It sounds like it wasn't what everyone set out to do. You just be fearless, I guess, is my last thing, because you never know. You don't
and flexible and flexible, because you don't know. I started out as pre-med. I always tell my students, I was pre-med. You see me in medical school. it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to be flexible and keep your mind open. I probably would have been a fine doctor. Who knows? But you know, you have to be open to all the possibilities, and it's okay if you change. People
I
are
would
like,
have.
"Oh, I got to know. I have to know what I'm going to do." You know.
I think
I
the
told
only,
my 3 kids I want a doctor. None of them became a doctor.
I think the only thing I'd add to this is, like, since we're kind of talking about internships a little bit, is that if you're lucky enough to get an internship, that you really take advantage of that opportunity, that you show up every day, that you put your best foot forward, that you work hard and produce quality work. I will also say that the Federal Probation Office for Massachusetts, we take interns. We're currently offering entry-level positions to individuals that have a bachelor's degree, working on their master's or have their master's degree. So, look on Indeed or check uscourts.gov. There may be opportunities there for employment, either temporary employment or full-time permanent employment. But there are ways to get experience and to try different things and see what you enjoy.
Excellent. And
I just-
another answer. Go ahead. I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say that we do have an internship office as well that you could connect with and try to get some help with some of these things. But research is another way to find out what's out there for internships. Rick just gave a good website. Go ahead, Dean.
So really quick, I just want to thank everybody for listening. It sounds like we're about to wrap up.
Yep.
People tend to have questions that you might not want to ask in front of other people. That's fine. So if that's the case, I know that part of my experience at LaSalle, they made me set up a LinkedIn account, which is actually one of the best things that you made me do in my internship, Dr. Bucci, because it's a great tool. It's basically it's Facebook for professionals if you don't have one. So feel free, get that set up, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just look at Dean Jenkins. And also, as you can see in the background, I'm not in uniform tonight because I am representing Supply the Y, because sometimes, more than sometimes, you gotta do things for your dreams. My police work, like, that's great and it's a great job, but it's just that, it's just a job. You can't make it your everything. So if you have a passion and something else you want to do, that's why I'm here representing Supply the Y, because it is my passion. It is something that benefits my family. It benefits my community. And if there's any way I can help anybody out there with advice with police work or school, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and definitely check out Supply the Y on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And I'll be more than happy to help out. I'll put it in the
Great.
chat too. Mm-hmm.
Anybody who wants to share their emails in the chat, like a lot of the times I do know that I always tell people, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask them questions or whatever. People like to talk about what they do, especially in the professions we're doing, because they're helping people and they want other people who want to help people to help people. So they don't feel it's a bother. So please feel free to do that. And I see some of the people are sharing their LinkedIn. That's great. Because LinkedIn is just as what Dean said. It's like Facebook, but it's all about professional, connecting with professions, jobs, conferences that come up, internships that come up. It's just a lot of opportunity to find information that you might find interesting. Okay, I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody. Your paychecks will be in the mail. I'm just joking. And I really appreciate, I think this panel has been amazing. And I want to say thank you on behalf of all of our students, undergraduate and graduate students. I learned a lot and I'm sure they did. And it was a pleasure for me to meet those of you I did not know already. And Cindy, anything else? Caroline?
Well, for me, I just want to say thank you to everyone. I am actually crafting the email to send to you guys right now to tell you thank you, and to be, we have Donnell Turner, who will probably be in contact with you for future information. And I'm just really happy that this happened today, you guys. Really, with everything that's going on in the world and in light of everything that happened yesterday, I think it was good to hear like the changes that can really happen in this field.
Thanks for taking the time. I know you guys are also busy. Thank you.
Thank you
Good
for
night.
having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody. Great to see everybody.
Good night, everybody. Great
Good
meeting
night.
everybody.